The boardroom went quiet as I clicked to the final slide of my presentation. The updated budget figures shone brightly on the screen, and I watched Karen's expression shift from smug assurance to sheer panic. Her perfectly polished nails gripped the conference table as she absorbed the $5,000 hike in HOA fees glaring back at her. "What is this?" she screeched, her voice rising with every syllable. "Who approved this absurd increase? This is outrageous." I straightened my tie, relishing the moment I'd meticulously planned for weeks. "You did, Karen," I said with a steady smile, "the second you find me $1,000 for swimming in my own lake." Let me rewind and explain how we arrived here. My name is David, and I've lived in Willow Creek Estates for 15 years. When I purchased my home, the main draw wasn't the 4-bedroom colonial or the spacious 3-car garage. It was the pristine 20-acre lake included with the deed. Crystal Lake, as the original owners called it, sits partly on my property and partly alongside the HOA community. For over a decade, this setup was harmonious. Neighbors greeted me during my morning swims, and I occasionally allowed the HOA to host their summer picnic on my portion of the shoreline. Then Karen became HOA president. You know the type. She arrived at her first board meeting with a leather-bound notebook, color-coded tabs, and a zeal to impose order on what she deemed chaos. Within her first month, she'd issued 17 citations for violations like mailboxes being 2 inches too tall or lawns half an inch too long. She measured everything with a ruler she kept in her purse. The trouble began on a sunny June morning. I was enjoying my usual swim, floating on my back, gazing at the clouds, when I heard that piercing voice from the shore. "Excuse me, sir." Karen stood at the water's edge, dressed in her HOA president blazer despite the 90-degree heat, brandishing a clipboard like a weapon. "You need to leave the water immediately." I swam closer, cautious not to get too near. She seemed capable of attempting a citizen's arrest with that clipboard. "Good morning, Karen. Lovely day for a swim." "Swimming is strictly forbidden in community waters," she declared, reading from her clipboard. HOA Regulation 7.3. 9 states all recreational water activities require board approval and proper insurance. I treaded water, genuinely baffled. "This is my lake, Karen. I own it. Check the deed." She adjusted her oversized sunglasses, the kind that screamed, "I demand to speak to the manager," from a mile away. The HOA governs all shared natural spaces within our community. This lake borders HOA property, so it's under our authority. That's not how property law works, I said, swimming back to my dock. "We'll see what our lawyers say." She shouted after me, "Consider yourself warned." I thought that would be the end of it. Surely she'd review the property lines and realize her error. But I underestimated her tenacity and her knack for bending reality to fit her narrative. The following Monday, a certified letter arrived on official HOA letterhead. It outlined my flagrant violation of community standards and slapped me with a $1,000 fine for unauthorized use of community resources. The letter rambled for 3 pages, citing fabricated regulations and threatening legal action if I continued my reckless endangerment of community safety. I tried reasoning first. I gathered copies of my deed highlighting sections proving my ownership of the lake, along with the 1952 survey, water rights documents, and a letter from the previous HOA president acknowledging my private ownership. I hand-delivered the packet to Karen's house. She answered in another blazer, this one pink, as if she had a wardrobe dedicated to HOA authority. "David," she said, barely glancing at my documents, "the fine stands. The board has decided." "The board?" I asked. "When did they meet about this emergency session?" She replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We take safety violations seriously." I later discovered this emergency session was Karen and her 2 loyal allies meeting at Starbucks. The letters kept coming, almost daily, each more threatening than the last. She filed complaints with the city claiming I was creating an attractive nuisance. She spread rumors, telling neighbors I was setting a dangerous precedent. Mrs. Henderson from 2 doors down asked if I was really planning to open an unlicensed water park. That's when I decided to stop defending and start attacking. I spent 2 weeks diving into HOA records, bylaws, contracts, agreements spanning 30 years. Then I found it, the golden ticket. A 1998 easement agreement allowed the HOA to use part of my property for maintenance access to their section of the lake, including the small beach for community events and a gravel road for their trucks. The catch, it expired after 25 years unless renewed. It was now 2024 and no one had renewed it. I confirmed everything with my lawyer, who chuckled when I explained. So she's fining you for using your own lake while the HOA is trespassing on your property. This'll be fun. I waited for the next HOA board meeting to strike. Karen ran these meetings like a courtroom drama, complete with a gavel she'd ordered online and strict adherence to Robert's Rules of Order. I signed up for public comment and bided my time. When she called my name, her voice dripping with contempt, I stood with my own leather folder. Two could play her game. "Thank you, Madame President." I began, mimicking her formal tone. "I'm here to address the expired easement agreement between the HOA and my property." The room fell silent. Karen's gavel hand twitched. "As you may not know," I continued, passing out copies to the board, "the HOA legal access to the northern section of Crystal Lake, including the beach and maintenance road, expired 6 months ago. I've tolerated the trespassing, but given recent events, it's time to formalize a new arrangement." Karen's face cycled through red, white, and a shade of purple I didn't know humans could achieve. "This is absurd," she sputtered. "We've used that access for years, without legal authorization for the past 6 months," I clarified. "My attorney has drafted a new lease agreement. The terms are fair. The HOA can retain access for an annual fee of—" I paused for dramatic effect, $5,000. A gasp rippled through the room. Someone's coffee cup hit the floor. $5,000, Karen shrieked, abandoning her precious rules. "That's extortion. It's market rate for lake front access," I replied coolly. "I had 3 real estate agents provide comps. I'm offering a discount. Of course, you can decline and lose access entirely. I'm sure residents will love losing their beach and driving 4 extra miles for maintenance." The board members whispered urgently. Tom Bradley, the treasurer, was already crunching numbers on his laptop. Karen looked ready to faint. "You can't do this," she hissed. "I can," I said, sliding the lease agreement across the table. "You have 30 days to decide. After that, I'm installing a gate." The next 3 weeks were glorious chaos. Word spread like wildfire. Neighbors who'd shunned me after Karen's smear campaign suddenly cared about fiscal responsibility. The community Facebook group erupted with demands for emergency budget meetings and calls for accountability. Karen tried everything, cease and desist letters that her lawyer likely billed a fortune for, only to be deemed baseless. Claims of historical use, rights without documentation. Even attempts to involve the city, who stayed out of the civil dispute. With 2 days left before my deadline and facing a resident uprising, the board called a real emergency meeting. Not a Starbucks powwow. The community center was packed, with people standing in the aisles and a livestream for those who couldn't attend. Karen sat at the head table in a severe black suit, looking like she was at her own professional funeral. The vote was quick and unanimous, with 1 abstention. Karen, naturally. The lease was approved, the budget adjusted, and HOA fees rose to cover the cost. The fallout was sweeter than the victory. The same keyboard warriors who'd backed Karen's petty rules turned on her. The Facebook group dissected how her vendetta cost every household an extra $160 annually. Someone made a meme of her face on the Titanic, captioned, "I'll never let go of my clipboard." At the next meeting, residents voiced their frustration. Mrs. Patterson, a retired teacher silent for a decade, delivered a scathing speech on fiscal responsibility and the perils of unchecked power, concluding, "Some board members should question if they're truly serving the community." That night, a recall petition began circulating. Within a week, it had enough signatures for a special election. Karen tried rallying her allies, but raising fees over a personal grudge is a fast way to lose friends. I timed my next swim for the morning of the recall vote. Floating on my back, I saw Karen's car in the community center lot. She'd arrived at 6 a.m., setting up a table with cookies and flyers, defending her record. By noon, the cookies sat untouched and she stood alone. The results came that evening. Karen was ousted from the board by an 87% margin, a record in HOA history. As the vote was read, she stood, clutching her notebook like a shield. "This is a mistake," she declared, voice breaking. "I was upholding standards. You'll regret this when property values crash." Someone laughed. Karen's composure shattered. She grabbed her purse and ruler and stormed out, heels clicking like a countdown to her exit. The new board sent me a formal apology and a check refunding my $1,000 fine plus interest. They proposed a new lease at $500 a year, promising mutual respect. I accepted. To celebrate, I installed a sign at my lake's entrance: "Private property, swim free." In tiny print, readable only up close, it added, "HOA leadership not welcome." Last I heard, Karen listed her house for sale. Her realtor mentioned a job 3 counties away where no one knows about the Crystal Lake fiasco. I imagine an unsuspecting HOA board is about to meet their match. As for me, I swim every morning. Sometimes I float and replay that boardroom moment when I revealed the $5,000 increase. Karen's horrified expression was worth every hour of research and legal fees. She learned the hard way that even the smallest power can corrupt, and that swimming in your own lake isn't a crime, no matter what your clipboard says.